You're watching Revenant Evil.
Hello everyone, and welcome. Today we are going to be taking a look at the Duke Nukem Iceberg. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Iceberg format by now. It helps us explore hidden secrets, Easter eggs, theories, references, and even the odd mystery. The deeper we go on the iceberg, the more obscure the knowledge. I found this iceberg made by Zykov Eddie, which I'll be using as a basis. But I'll also be adding a few new entries myself. A lot of these facts were new to me, so I'm confident that even the most die-hard of Duke fans will learn something new. Well, how deep does it go? Let's find out. Movie references. Duke is well known for his movie and pop culture references. Here are a few examples.
Go ahead, make my day.
Go ahead, make my day.
I ain't got time to bleed.
You're bleeding, man. I ain't got time to bleed.
Say hello to my little friend.
Say hello to my little friend!
You're not supposed to be here. In a secret area of the abyss can be found the message, "You're not supposed to be here," which is a cool note to players from the level designer, Richard Gray, signed here under his alias, Level Lord. Megadeth. In 1999, famous metal band Megadeth released their 8th studio album, called Risk, and included exclusively on the Japanese version was their cover of the Duke Nukem theme, Grab Bag. There are actually 2 versions of the song available. One has voice clips of Duke, and the other one is entirely instrumental. Sweet. I always naively thought they covered this song because they loved it, but naturally it seems to be because they were paid. As when the 2001 version of Duke Nukem Forever leaked, it was revealed that it was being used as the main theme for the game.
Balls of Steel.
So this one refers to a classic YouTube video in which someone takes to Ventrilo to do some good old-fashioned trolling. The video sees the victim, who is oblivious to the fact that she's interacting with a soundboard, getting more and more irate as Duke keeps reminding her that he has balls of steel.
Balls of steel, what is that?
The video was so popular that it was even referenced in Duke Nukem Forever.
No, I'm gonna fucking kill you, motherfucker, old style!
I'm gonna kill you old style.
And I'm willing to bet that the soundboard included with the game was in direct response to this video. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend checking it out. It's pretty funny.
You think that's fucking funny?
PlayStation port. In 1997, the PS1 was blessed with greatness when Aardvark Software released Duke Nukem Total Meltdown. It has a bunch of exclusive content, including new enemies, music, voice lines, and a new episode. I'm not sure exactly why this is on the iceberg, but check out my Total Meltdown video if you'd like to learn more. Duff Beer. If you look up during the final battle with the Cycloid Emperor, you'll see a blimp with Duff Beer written on it. This is, of course, a reference to The Simpsons. There are 2 other references to The Simpsons in the game. In the level Going Postal, we can see Pick Up Bart written on the wall, and in the level Critical Mass, there's a secret area that resembles Homer's workplace. Nice. I ain't afraid of no quake. When you come across this building in the level LA Rumble, an earthquake strikes, and Duke says,
I ain't afraid of no quake.
This is in reference to the then upcoming Quake by id Software, but to make the reference even more blatant, the building is called East Town Towers, which is modeled on the real-life building where id were based, which is called Town East Tower. 8675309. Written above the urinal is 8675309, which is a reference to the 1981 single by Tommy Two-Tone. The song is about a guy that gets a girl's number off a bathroom wall. Classy. The number also appears in the level Titty City in Duke Nukem Forever. One doomed space marine. In a secret area in Death Row, you can find Doom Guy, and Duke says,
That's one doomed space marine.
And in Duke Nukem Forever, there's a throwback to this Easter egg.
That's one dead space marine.
Killer doors. In Duke 3D, even the doors are out to kill you. This is a quirk of how the game engine works, and as a result, also happens in other build engine games. Killer doors are also referenced in Ion Fury on this poster. O.J. Simpson chase. Back in 1994, former NFL player O.J. Simpson was charged with double murder. What does this have to do with Duke Nukem? Well, in the lead up to his arrest, O.J. was involved in a now infamous low-speed car chase, which would end up being depicted in the game on this TV in Red Light District. These billboards are also in reference to the case. Lame Duke. Lame Duke is a prototype of Duke 3D that was released by 3D Realms in 1997 to celebrate the 1-year anniversary of the game. With a compilation date of December 1994, it's still a good 13 months away from release, so expect to see a lot of differences. Penthouse Map. In a joint venture between GT Interactive and Penthouse Magazine, a free level was made available to download in May of 1997. The level is set in between episodes 2 and 3, and in it we get to see what Duke gets up to during some R&R. Unfortunately, the aliens are back and it's up to Duke to save the day. But what makes this level stand out from the other add-ons? Well, these. Randy. Randy Pitchford is probably the most notorious magician to have ever worked on Duke Nukem. His involvement with the franchise starts sometime in 1996, when he was recruited by 3D Realms after they were impressed with some of his custom user maps. He would go on to design at least 3 levels for Episode 4. Over the years he's been involved with many controversies, and honestly I could probably make a whole video just about Randy Pitchford at this point. Faces of Death. The level Faces of Death was originally only accessible in single player by using the no-clip cheat. To get to it, go to the level The Abyss and navigate to the section just before the Battle Lord. Then, if we clip through here, we'll find a hidden exit. This will take us to Launch Facility, but if we continue all the way back and press the button again, we'll be taken to Faces of Death. It was originally intended to be exclusive to multiplayer, as evidenced by the fact there's no way to finish the level. But if it was a multiplayer-only level, why was this button hidden in the Abyss? Well, none of that matters now anyway, because as of the 20th Anniversary World Tour, the level was made accessible by normal means, and given an end trigger. Captain Planet. Shortly after the release of the original Duke Nukem, 3D Realms caught wind that in the cartoon Captain Planet exists a character called Duke Nukem.
Hey, Planeteers! Duke Nukem here!
And to avoid any potential legal repercussions, an update was issued that changed the spelling of the game. This was only temporary, however, as once they looked into it, they realized that Duke Nukem was not a registered trademark, and quickly snapped it up for themselves. Take this next bit with a pinch of salt, because I couldn't find a source, but according to the Duke Nukem fan wiki, 3D Realms actually considered the idea of calling him Duke Nukem. Duke Nukem. Of course it was rejected, but can you imagine it? Awesome. Distant screams. In certain levels, every now and again, you'll hear this sound clip. It does a good job at selling you on the alien invasion taking place, but I don't think there's much more to say about this entry other than how creepy it is. San Andreas Fault. The game doesn't really explain much in regards to the storyline, but it seems as though the developers once had plans for a somewhat more fleshed out story. Throughout the game, we can see hints at a greater plot, specifically with these monitors all showing the San Andreas fault line. But that's not all, as during the Overlord boss fight, we can see that the aliens have their weapons focused on the area. But what does it all mean? Well, as I said, the game doesn't really explain much, but the official strategy guide does give us a little bit more information. It turns out that the aliens' plan is to crack the planet open to easily mine its resources. but what they need these for is unknown. Doors versus sentry drones. This refers to a really handy trick that you can do to trick sentry drones into ending their own existence. All you have to do is first get their attention, then quickly close a door between you and them, and the drones will fly into the door, often destroying themselves in the process. Unused Duke lines. With how many quips Duke makes, it's no surprise that some of his one-liners would end up going unused. Here are a few examples.
You're pissing me off. Already seen this one.
I did not have sexual relations with that robot.
Saturn version. Developed by the renowned Lobotomy Software, is a unique version of the game for the Sega Saturn. It's notable because the game runs on a different game engine, and includes unique features such as a cool minigame called Death Tank, and a unique playable level, Urea 51. Sprite work. Sprite work is a process where, through the use of in-game sprites, mappers are able to create realistic objects that probably otherwise wouldn't be possible. They are used sparingly in Duke 3D due to how resource intensive they are, but creators of custom maps utilize the effect to create some realistic scenes. Well, realistic for the build engine. Kill Me. Duke 3D also takes some inspiration from the movie Alien, and when you press action on a babe, she will utter the classic line from the film.
Kill me.
Please, kill me.
0.99 Prototype. The 0.99 prototype is a leaked beta build of the game that, despite being only 3.5 weeks away from release, contains a surprising amount of cut content. Other than Lame Duke, it is the only prototype available to download. Watch this video if you want to learn more. Building Demolition Skip. This one refers to a cool little exploit which allows you to input keycards and press buttons from the other side of the wall. As demonstrated here, this can be pretty useful for speedruns. Teardrops and Lunatic Fringe Geometry. The levels Teardrops and Lunatic Fringe serve as a cool showcase of a special feature of the build engine, where level designers are able to create entirely different rooms that occupy the same space. It's quite an impressive feature, as we can see here in Teardrops. This room in the middle will change depending on what door we're looking through. Awesome. Big Heads. This one is referring to a joke from the end of episode 4, where the team thank the fans for giving them big heads, which I guess is supposed to be some sort of dick joke, only to reveal seconds later that they meant it literally. Blade Runner theme. Another franchise that lends some of its DNA to Duke 3D is Blade Runner. This is more apparent in the early prototype stages of the game's development, with its gloomy sci-fi world and cyborg enemies. But specifically, I think this entry is referring to the fact that the track from Raw Meat closely resembles the music that plays during the end credits of the movie. Destructible cameras. At some point in development, the devs were playing around with the idea of having destructible cameras. I found some footage of an unreleased beta that clearly demonstrates being able to destroy the cameras. My guess is they realized that it's a pretty bad idea and scrapped it, as no cameras can be destroyed in the base game. Sweeney. Sweeney is one of 2 scrap levels from an early version of Episode 3, Shrapnel City, known then as Shutdown at Ground Zero, the other level being Sewer. They were later released as a free download. Kick with both legs. In certain early versions of the game, by having the mighty foot selected and using quick kick, it's possible to get Duke to do this. Incredible. Mega Drive version. In 1998, Brazilian company Tectoy released a version of the game on the Sega Mega Drive. It's often regarded as a great technical achievement, and looking at it, I can see why. It has some impressive 3D graphics and brings over most of Duke's enemies and weapons. Watch this to see more. Sharks are aliens too. Sharks are unique because they're the only enemy to attack Duke without being influenced by the aliens. Or are they? If we look closely at the sharks, they have red eyes, just as the captured babes do. So, is it possible that the sharks have been influenced by the aliens somehow? Well, curiously, when spotted together, the shark will never attack an alien, suggesting that they probably are under their control. Pig Cop Autopsy. The level Dark Side takes place on an Earth Defense Force moon base that's been occupied by the aliens. And what's curious about it is how it's the only level from episode 2 in which we can find any pig cops. But the 2 pig cops that we find here are already dead. The first one is near the beginning of the level, and likely serves as an interesting way to give the player a shotgun, as well as being a cool bit of environmental storytelling. Was this an EDF soldier that had mutated into a pig cop? Who knows? A bit later in the level, we come across a second pig cop on an operating table. The game, of course, gives no clear answers as to what's going on, but my guess would be that the humans were examining it in an attempt to find out anything they could, possibly trying to find a way to reverse the process. Texture 0. Texture 0 refers to the default texture that is applied when creating a level in Duke 3D. The texture depicts a wall, which has become infamous among the modding community for being, well, bland. And as a result, you'll very rarely see this texture, even when playing user maps. Car 54. On the level Freeway, we come across this wrecked police car with the number 54 on the top. This is a reference to the sitcom, Car 54, Where Are You? The show dates back to the early 1960s and centers around 2 mismatched police officers who patrol the Bronx in their patrol car, known as Car 54. Mini-bosses. After beating the Battlelord at the end of the first episode, sometimes we will encounter a smaller and weaker version of the boss called a Battlelord Sentry. Miniature versions of the other bosses also exist in the game, but are never used due to being unfinished. The Overlord Sentry would be first introduced in Duke Nukem 64, but would make its PC debut alongside the Cycloid Sentry in the 20th Anniversary Edition. 1995 prototype. 1995 was a big year for Duke 3D's development. During this time, we'd see lame Duke enemies being replaced with aliens and pig cops. We'd start seeing the first early screenshots of familiar levels. Weapons would be added and removed, but unfortunately we don't have access to much material from this incredibly interesting period of time. The prototypes exist, and some people have them, but they're not available for us lowly fans. Pirates suck. Pirates suck is a message that appears upon using the cheat DN Beta. It's possibly some sort of in-joke between the developers, but not much else is known about it. BPJM. The Federal Department for Media Harmful to Young Persons, or BPJM for short, is the official German agency responsible for, you guessed it, determining whether or not a piece of media is harmful to young people. If a piece of media is deemed harmful, then it could face restrictions on sale and advertisement. And as you may have guessed by now, Duke 3D would face some restrictions, being placed on Sublist B. 1138. In Episode 2, Level 2, Incubator, are 2 references to THX 1138, which is a movie directed by George Lucas. The first instance is in the secret area where we find 1138 written on the security monitor, and the second is hidden here. Do you see it? Sneaky. But that's not all. Did you know it also makes an appearance in Duke Nukem Forever? In the level The Duke Cave, the number is used to activate the big gun at the end of the stage. Pigsty shotgun sounds. At the beginning of the level Pigsty, there is a pretty overt reference to the Terminator when we hear someone say,
"I'll be back."
This section mimics the scene from the movie where the Terminator enters a police station in pursuit of Sarah Connor. In the game, we can hear shots being fired and pig cops singing their death cries, implying that someone is making their way through the building, disposing of pig cops. And while there are a few pig cops lying around, we never find the mysterious shooter. Of course, this is just a movie reference, but that hasn't stopped players from speculating who it might be. Opening doors by kicking. In what I think might be a leftover feature, it's possible to kick open some doors. For example, this one in level 1. This is also possible on some doors that usually require a keycard. Like here, for example. If we kick these doors in the level Death Row, we can skip the yellow keycard entirely. Overlord Shrinker Gun. At first, I thought this one was referring to the Overlord's beta design, which if we take a look at in this early screenshot, we can see that it used to have a weapon down there. But actually, after speaking to the Iceberg's creator, he says it's in reference to the giant weapon the aliens have aimed at Earth. So let's take a closer look. As I mentioned earlier, this might have been used to mine the planet. Looking at its projectiles, we'll see that they look just like the Shrinker. Were they shrinking parts of the Earth to enable easier transport, or expanding rocks to break it open? Or was this weapon something else entirely? We may never know, but it sure is interesting. Organic Turret. Graphics for an unused enemy called the Organic Turret exist in the game files. Judging by its appearance, it would probably be found in areas infested with aliens. It would have been placed on the ceiling and fired spit at the player, similar to the Enforcers. But ultimately, it didn't make the cut, and all we have left are its graphics in the files. Flamethrower. The flamethrower is a scrapped weapon from Duke 3D that was repurposed into the freeze thrower late into development. Part of its code still exists in the 0.99 prototype, which was compiled just a few short weeks before the game's release. A flamethrower would end up being introduced to Duke 3D in the 20th anniversary edition, where it is called the Incinerator. Spacesuit. During certain sections of Episode 2, Duke was supposed to use a spacesuit to safely traverse hostile areas in space. It would have acted similar to the scuba gear or protective boots, in that, once collected, it would automatically activate when needed. These areas in space were slowly cut from the game, or modified to include some sort of ceiling, and finally it was decided that the spacesuit was no longer needed. But interestingly, the pickup for this item still exists as a level prop. Tiny Trooper. This one refers to an interesting bug with the Shrinker. Basically, what happens is if you shoot an enemy that's been shrunk, it will stay shrunk forever. Not only that though, it will regain its ability to shoot you. So now you have to deal with this. It's not really a big issue though. Wall Limit. Build has proven itself to be a highly versatile game engine, but one of its biggest constraints is the wall limit. The original DOS version of Build allowed for over 8,000 walls, and eDuke doubles the number to over 16,000, which sounds like a lot to me, but it's not uncommon for experienced map builders to reach this limit and ultimately have to make some compromises. Pribor 3B Nordenfelt. This is a weapon that originates from Soviet Russia and may have been the real-life inspiration for Duke's chain gun cannon. I can see the resemblance, but was this definitively the inspiration for the chain gun? Personally, I'm not so sure. Can you imagine the recoil on this bad boy? 3D glasses mode. If we modify Duke 3D's configuration file, we can boot the game into a 3D stereoscopic mode. And if you have an old school pair of red and blue 3D glasses, it will allow you to play Duke Nukem 3D in 3D. This is a feature of the build engine, so it's also possible in some other games. In today's world of VR headsets, this mode is redundant, but I imagine this would have been pretty exciting back in the day. Battlelord Raw Origins. The Battlelord's Raw originates from a Sound Ideas sound library and has been used in many pieces of media over the years, even as far back as 1957. But I've made a whole video talking about Duke 3D's sound effects where I go into much more detail, so if you're interested, I recommend watching this. Rapid Transit Secret. This entry is referring to a particularly unique secret found in the level Rapid Transit. Just after where we use the blue keycard hidden behind this wall, we find a captured babe and some medical utensils, which is weird in itself, but when we hit this button, it reveals this. What the f***? I'm not really sure what to say about it, but I will say this has got to be the weirdest secret in the game. Void Zone. After finishing a user map, the player will see the message, "Entering Void Zone." This caused confusion among players for years. Was this some unfinished level left in the game? Well, as it turns out, no. It's just placeholder text for the level after user map, indicating there is no map afterwards. USS frame rate. Another hidden message can be found in the level Spaceport. Taking Duke out of bounds, we can see that this ship is called USS frame rate, which just goes to show how conscious of the game's frame rate they must have been at the time. Gamecom. The Gamecom is a handheld gaming device from Tiger Electronics, and despite being clearly underpowered, it managed to secure a whole bunch of big name licenses, one of them being Duke Nukem. Needless to say, the game sucks, but it's an interesting curiosity at the very least.
Dude, don't play Game Boy. Dude, don't play Game Boy. Don't play Game Boy.
Haunted Abyss. I think this one's referring to the fact that in certain areas of the abyss, this strange chanting can be heard that has no clear origin. Just where is it coming from? We will also spot handprints painted with blood. And if you happen to be playing the beta, there actually is a ghost. Spooky. Sonic Resonator. The Sonic Resonator is one of many scrapped weapons found in earlier versions of the game. In Lame Duke, we can stumble across this weapon, but we are unable to pick it up. The Xbox Live Arcade release of Duke 3D would include some concept art for the weapon that would give us an idea about how it was going to function, but ultimately it would end up being completely scrapped. Dummy Duke. Dummy Duke is the name of a scrapped boss that was found in the 0.99 beta build. There are two variants, one which is about the size you'd expect, and the other one being much larger, called Big Dummy Duke. It's unknown if they were ever intended to be featured as actual bosses, but given the name Dummy Duke, I think it's a safe bet to assume they were probably used for testing. Alien Language. In Lame Duke, there are two textures that depict an alien language, and I have to wonder how far along this idea went. Do these actually mean anything? Did they design and create a whole alien alphabet? Or are these just random symbols designed to look alien? The idea seems to be mostly scrapped, but there is some alien text remaining on the Battlelord's door, and there's also some graffitied in the level movie set. In Zero Hour, we can find more examples of an alien language, but they look completely different to me. Force Sphere. The Force Sphere is a really cool leftover effect that goes unused. As you can see, it's quite unique and acts differently to anything else seen in the game. It could have several uses. For one, it can be used as a sort of shield, protecting something in the middle, and as it has collision, you're able to use it as a platform, and I guess it could also be used just for aesthetics. Shooting it will cause the sparkles to explode, which in turn makes the whole sphere start to spin, and creates an opening for the player to get inside. Once 11 or more sparkles have been destroyed, the whole thing will slowly disintegrate. As cool as the force sphere is, I can't really think of anywhere where it would fit into the game, but I am surprised it doesn't show up in more user maps. Title screen hidden messages. In 2018, Duke4.net forum user and eDuke32 developer PogoKeen shared a discovery he'd made regarding Duke's title screen. By modifying the color palette, it reveals some hidden credits. Giz was the alias of 3D Realms artist James Story, and AB refers to Alan Blum. Mirror World. The Mirror World refers to the mysterious world that resides behind the mirror. Let's check it out. First up, I tried the Atomic Edition, which is version 1.4. By using NoClip, I was able to go through the mirror, but there's nothing there but void. Then I tried it in beta 0.99, and even with NoClip, the mirror and in fact this whole wall is completely solid. But I was able to bypass this by finding a different wall to clip through. Man, it feels weird being in here. But I was unable to escape this alternate dimension, and destroying the mirror made the world go completely insane. Then I tried it in the original launch day version, 1.3D, which was a lot more straightforward. By using NoClip, you can just walk straight into it. You can explore as far as about here, then you are killed, even with God mode. The mirror world is surreal, but it's still really cool to be able to explore these mysterious areas. Lamer Duke. I couldn't find much information regarding a Lamer Duke, but judging by its name, I think it's a safe bet that it's referring to an even older and even lamer version of the game, which leads us to this video, uploaded by 3D Realms. The build features levels that are present in Lame Duke, but has completely different enemies and weapons. Wait, what's that? They're releasing these soon? Fuck yeah! Oh, this video was uploaded almost a decade ago. Sector Boss. There's an unfinished boss battle in Lame Duke that uses a sector that follows the player. It looks a bit goofy, but that's because the idea was never really finished, but the code for this is still in the retail version of the game. Here is an example of how it could look if someone were to implement it into a level. Pretty cool. Build porn. Build porn is a term used by custom level builders to describe new gimmicks or effects that can be accomplished in the build engine with a little bit of creativity. Here are a few examples. This realistic garage door was made by Zykov Eddie, and in my opinion, it looks great. Then we have this in-game jukebox made by Oasis, which utilizes some build engine magic to create music that phases in and out. But my favorite one is this awesome UFO abduction scene, also made by Oasis, that utilizes the sector boss from the last entry in a really creative way. I'm sure you'll agree that these are very impressive. Good job, guys. Fake moon landing. The moon landing hoax is probably the most popular conspiracy theory of all time, and as such has been referenced in countless media for decades. The theory states that the US government faked the moon landings and recorded the iconic footage on a movie set. So finding a set of the moon in a level called Movie Set is really no big surprise. But is this particular scene actually depicting the moment that Neil Armstrong took the giant leap for mankind? Possibly. But I don't think so. For a start, there's no lunar lander. Instead, there's a giant satellite dish, some jibs, a chain gun, and a jetpack. Is this a leg? And if we take a look over by the director's chair, we can see a movie slate with Duke Nukem written on it. So in my opinion, this area is most likely where they're filming a movie about Duke Nukem. Maybe it's the set for this movie. Night Strike Duke. This one refers to a Duke Nukem action figure made by Resaurus in 1997. There was a whole range of toys made, but this one is unique in that it offers a different outfit for Duke, which I think was made specifically for this toy. Other than that, I can't see any special reason for this being on the Iceberg. The toys were pretty cool though. Anal Uthric. In Flood Zone, above this waterfall, there's a hidden message in the shadows. It's quite hard to read, but it looks as though it says Anal Uthric. According to the Duke Nukem fan wiki, it is a Gaelic term for dragon's breath. I've got no idea what this message is doing here or what its relevance is, but it's definitely one of the more unique messages in the game. Green keycard. While we generally only see red, yellow and blue keycards, some modders figured out that by changing the color palette, it's also possible to get other colors, such as green. Elevator to nowhere. Going back to the level dark side, there's this one section where we'll find a mysterious elevator that leads to nowhere. How bizarre. What's its purpose? Was this going to be a secret area before it was either abandoned or forgotten about? Either way, it sure is strange. My guess is that the atomic health that's sitting on top was meant to be placed at the bottom. What do you guys think? Unspawned entities. In some levels, there are enemies scripted to appear, but the trigger for them was cut sometime during development, leaving them in a sort of digital limbo. An example would be in the level Bankroll, where there's a number of unused respawns, possibly intended to occur after getting back from the red keycard area. Tiger Electronics. You thought Duke 3D on Gamecom was bad? Well, take a look at this shit heap. This somehow actually makes the Gamecom version look good, and that's saying something. What is this even supposed to be? And just listen to this music. Wow. Still, even though it's a travesty, it's pretty interesting, and just goes to show how popular Duke Nukem was in his heyday. Alien-human hybrid. In LA Rumble, we come across what appears to be some sort of health clinic. On the table, we can find a disgusting alien-human hybrid thing. If I absolutely had to think of a scenario to explain its existence, then maybe a babe had escaped after being captured by the aliens, and in her panic came here to remove it. It's totally weird, but it doesn't resemble any of the aliens in the game. So I'm not sure if this is meant to be some sort of hidden lore, or just a little joke left in by the level designer. Level Lord, you have some explaining to do. Duke Tag. Did you know that there's a special multiplayer mode exclusive to the level The Queen? Well, when playing in multiplayer, a switch appears that will allow you to activate Duke Tag, which is a team-based multiplayer mode for up to 8 players. Players must pick either the green or brown team, and each must have at least one runner and one flyer. The objective is for the flyer to make their way across the map and press a switch that unlocks the jetpack, which allows them to fly up to press a button that in turn unlocks the protective boots. The runner can then safely make their way down the toxic river without being killed and score a point. I've never tried it, but it looks pretty cool. A rare W for Randy. Big Brother. During the 1984 Super Bowl, Apple would air its first ever commercial for the Mac computer. The trailer was inspired by George Orwell's dystopian novel, 1984, and this trailer would eventually make its way into the Mac port of Duke Nukem 3D as an Easter egg. To find it, we need to go to the projection room and switch on the movie, then type in DN 1984. Cool. Homebrew. In 2003, 3D Realms released the source code for Duke Nukem 3D. This would lead to a number of source ports being developed for a number of different systems, and as a result, it's now possible to play Duke 3D on the 3DS, Amiga, PSP, original Xbox, and the Sega Dreamcast, just to name a few. Tex Murphy. Tex Murphy is a point-and-click video game series set in a post-apocalyptic San Francisco, featuring the titular private investigator, Tex Murphy. The series seems to have inspired Duke 3D, but it very rarely gets a mention. What connections can we find? Well, for one, during development, Red Light District was called Mean Streets, which, coincidentally, is the name of the first game in the Tex Murphy series. Okay, that's a pretty weak link, granted, but here we can see a texture from Lame Duke that is a still frame from 1994's Under a Killing Moon. And in a prototype of Duke 3D, the sky graphics were ripped directly from the game's box art. Sweet. So there you have it, guys, the Duke Nukem Iceberg explained. Thank you so much for watching. If you could leave a like and subscribe, I'd be eternally grateful. And if you can think of any more cool Duke Nukem facts, be sure to mention them in the comments, and they may end up in a future video. But before I go, I would like to know, did you learn anything from this video? Which was your favourite entry? Was OJ innocent? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to Revenant Evil, or I'll kick your ass.
Nobody likes a bigot when he's crying. Sing it with me. Nobody likes a bigot when he's crying. One more time. Nobody likes a bigot.
Shut the fuck up.
Unless he's crying. Boo, like a big fucking baby. Boo hoo when he's crying. Thank you.
A crowbar would come in handy right about now.